to win hearts and minds and partly to hunt Taliban. On the way in, the atmosphere ramps up when fresh intelligence indicates a target is present.
There's a dude that's just squirted from the motorcycle shop pretty quick on his motorbike. He's fucking hooning. Be on the bloody cover of bloody Crusted Demon.
The compound is 500 metres from the landing zone. There are shouted instructions to follow the footsteps of the man in front.
Spread out a bit, mate.
So essentially, during the flight in, we received more intelligence indicating that persons of interest are in these certain compounds. We've had to adjust the plan to cater for that.
One target has, as they put it, squirted on a motorbike, but a second target, a suspected IED facilitator, is detained. The locals have in turn also made a discovery. A sniper team in the hills above has been spotted and suspected Taliban are attempting to encircle them.
ICOM suggested if they come in the green, they'll shoot us up.
A kid, probably younger than 10 years old, probably 8 years old, 6, was his little brother, I guess. You could see them start departing from the village with a herd of goats, and it became pretty clear that that herd of goats was probably going to make contact with our position.
Quite often they'll use children. The children will come up into our positions within the green belt, come up, just having a look at us, then they'll walk off and report. And we've seen them, you can see them walk off and then report to adults.
Hey, Bravo. Yep. We've got a tunnel down here.
Back in the compound, caches are found, but they are empty.
We're not finding weapons or caches within compounds. They're all in adjacent fields.
Local nationals who have seen it all before seem to take the intrusion in their stride. And what about the bad people? How do they treat you? Through an interpreter, I asked for their reaction.
He said no bad people have ever even came for him to even know how to answer that question. He says you will be lucky if you even saw one in the mountain right now.
The men say there are no Taliban here, that they are farmers trapped in the middle. The soldiers are sceptical. Asking these people which side they're on can often seem to be pointless. They're obviously going to be on the side of their family, their tribe, and whichever powerful force happens to be around on any given day. It's an extraordinarily difficult question to answer which side they're on. And of course, that's the problem that the soldiers face every single day. Soon after, the men are detained when ammunition and detonators are found by the Afghan partner force.
Oh, they're actually very good. They'll find stuff that we can't find with all their technology.
More and more operations are now like this, with no shots fired and suspected Taliban taken into custody. They are held in this detention facility at Tarin Kot. Within approximately 4 days, if no prosecutable evidence is found, they are given a sum of money and released. More and more, the work of Special Forces soldiers has come to resemble conventional policing. While the Australian Federal Police has a training role in Uruzgan, they do not go outside the wire. It's often said that the best classroom is the battlefield. Is that limiting for you?
It is limiting, but there's reality. You know, you have to look at each mission, what's safe, what's not safe. I think some of the things that the SOTG get involved in, potentially we could be there. Some of the other things, it's really their domain. It's what they train for. It's high risk.
Dramatic rage.
Gavin Ryan used to run the Piranha task force that investigated Melbourne's gangland murders. So, Gavin, it's a bit like out of the frying pan into the fire for you, isn't it?
Yeah, the 29 years at Vicpol were great. The last 5 years were, at Piranha were a highlight of my career, and I always wanted to represent my country overseas, so this opportunity came up.
So a challenge along the lines of building a police force in a community with a literacy rate of 5% and complex tribal and family ties to the insurgency is not so steep. So tell me a little bit more about the process of applying rule of law to what has been for centuries a lawless environment.
Yeah, very true. Not a very hard task for everyone involved. It's Australia back home. It's like coming in and transplanting a completely different system.
When the soldiers talk about resolution in Afghanistan, they frequently say there is no one solution and no single battlefront.
First step is to preserve the scene, then locate any witnesses.
The Australians partner with a US Navy reservist to train a group of local prosecutors in evidence collection. It's a bit like NCIS meets The Wire.
And the fourth is to collect the evidence. I'm a police officer in Maryland, so it all applies here. We teach the same things, so it's a good fit for me.
The immediate objective is to raise skill levels, and the broad objective is to strengthen rule of law. Is this evidence of measurable progress?
It is measurable, and as I mentioned, talking to chief prosecutors, they're seeing increased conviction rates and admissible evidence in the court. There was a time where people would walk in one door and out the other because there wasn't significant prosecutorial evidence. That is now changing.
In the next segment, we are allowed into the Nerve Centre at Camp Russell and spend a day with Australia's elite Special Air Services soldiers. One of the biggest changes to occur on the battlefront is revealed through this next unique experience.
What targets are we likely to be able to prosecute today, and what effects we can achieve on the network by targeting these people.
So have there been any developments?
Yes. Last night we had a fair bit of information that came in that's enabled us to develop a series of mission plans, I guess you could say, that are basically sitting on the shelf waiting for this morning.
So that's what we're about to see?
Yes.
We are entering the Special Operations Command and Control Centre to start a day with the SAS. This is where the battle is monitored, where the intelligence accumulates, and where what matters even more than the fighting, the thinking, is done.
We've had plenty of occasions where we've had intelligence that's given us a start point, and then we start bringing other layers and fusing other forms of intelligence over the top. It might be an initial rumour that starts from within the local population, and then we use some sensors to confirm whether that is true or not.
In the ready room alongside is another practical asset, the US Army Air Wing.
We're going to launch a morning vehicle interdiction package up towards Kalach. We've got some reliable intelligence suggesting a few of the key insurgent commanders from up that way are starting to be pushed back in.
To respond swiftly to intelligence alerts, the SAS needs helicopters.
Everybody's playing for helicopters. Everybody wants helicopters. So for these guys to have the amount of, if you will, dedicated assets for the rotary wing package is almost unheard of anywhere you go. And it's because of that relationship that we established early on.
This is the third rotation now that we've had the 4 and 2 package, so 4 60s, so 4 Black Hawks. And we have 2 gunships that support that, and we work over a 4-day period.
Out on the flight line at this one base is the equivalent of the entire Australian rotary wing fleet. Earlier this year, a US Black Hawk with the SAS on board chased down a major Taliban target, codenamed Wiggum, as he tried to outrun them on a motorbike.
Where they were able to identify Objective Wiggum moving on a motorbike, rapidly interdict him, detain him, conduct biometric analysis and put him into detention.
I take it you can use the rotor wash to actually remove him from his motorbike.
And in many ways that's how we often achieve these operations without engaging, without needing to fire a shot. We use whatever capability we might have.
Later that morning, the SAS squadron prepares for another such mission.
The two areas that we're focusing on is K2V and the Kalach Valley. There is reports that insurgent commanders are coming into the area, and we're going to restrict their freedom of movement by conducting vehicle interdiction along known rat lines, pretty much in this sort of area between the two valleys in this very canalised terrain.
The Black Hawks will head north. The modern approach to long-range patrolling is a long way from the days when vehicles would roll out for weeks at a time into areas where you did not need to be Taliban to oppose all invaders.
There's certainly instances of coalition being caught in the middle of crossfire between warring tribal factions. That is a feature of this battlefield, and that's what makes the job that the guys do so much more admirable.
In modern warfare's version of random breath testing, one Black Hawk swoops down, a smoke grenade fired to warn the vehicle to stop.
Observing one by motorbike with one by military-age male. Brake, motorbike moving north-south, intent to interdict over.
As with random breath testing, there's a lot of tedium and the occasional jackpot. Among the intelligence gathered are tests for indications of explosive residue and fingerprints, which can help convict bomb makers.
Ask him if he knows of any Taliban in the area.
یا ولا هیڅ معلومات لري زه خپل موټر سره موټر چلوم دا اوس چې کوی کې څه کښت ورکته.
Because back a few days ago and everything, they would walk around the village and everything, but right now they disappeared.
The search is undertaken while a second Black Hawk with snipers at the ready hovers above. In a week of interdiction missions, one rifle is recovered, 9 suspects are detained, and 1 insurgent is killed. While the results appear slight to the SAS, there is a positive. Usually at this time the fighting season peaks, but now fewer targets are presenting.
Some of them are the very senior levels who feel that they've done their bit and that they have no desire to come back and risk their lives anymore.
Next we go to the vexing question of trust following a series of fatal attacks on Australian soldiers by their Afghan partners. The dawn of another day and the commandos are on the move, preparing to attack another drug laboratory.
So going back to Helmand, considering that it's obviously a hotspot, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, pretty confident. We've got pretty good intelligence for this one, so it's vicinity the same area as last time, so we know the area pretty well.
100 metres away, the SAS is also getting ready. The SAS is going out again. You have to be here to get a sense of the sheer relentlessness of all this. You'll see the men in the morning in the mess with the camouflage paint still on, having come back from a mission, and then soon after, like now, another crew is going out. And what is also hard to get your head around is the fact that going out is what they'd rather do.
It's the psyche of your soldier, I suppose. I mean, like I said, they're very high functioning individuals. No one likes to be seen as being a person that's not able to cope.
Every mission must be conducted with a representation of at least 33% of the partner force, in this case Afghan police from the local special response team, who are different. How hard is it for you sometimes to adjust, like to hurry up and wait, that sort of thing, to the Afghan way?
Well, I guess you saw it this morning. We asked them to be here at 6:30. 7 o'clock they rock up, but they do it their way.
Wally!
When the Australians are not patrolling with the Afghans, they are training them. Fast-tracking courses in arrests, evidence collection, navigation, planning, and, in this instance, unarmed combat.
You have to make the training enjoyable. We're back in Australia, I guess you just do it and soldiers accept they have to do it. We're here, if you don't make it enjoyable, the numbers they just won't turn up, less and less.
This SRT commander was earlier brought to Australia to help strengthen both the skills and the partnership.
It'll be an overnight mission for, we only need 4 of your men.
There is no denying the degree of difficulty. In November, 3 Australians were killed by an enemy masquerading as a friend. This followed an earlier murder of an Australian Army cook by an Afghan ally. Afghan police in particular have had a poor reputation for collaborating with the Taliban, for extorting the local population and for drug use.
I haven't seen them smoke marijuana at all, but in the early days they used to, and a lot of Australians would refuse to go out and patrol with them because they were under the influence of marijuana.
Adapting to the Afghan way calls for patience and compromise.
What do you think? Is this one too hard?
No, I don't think it's too hard. I think it is certainly very challenging.
The challenge is most apparent in the key relationship the coalition has formed with a former warlord turned police chief, Matullah Khan.
It is unlikely that you'll come across anyone of any real power in Afghanistan that hasn't had some sort of past. It's a tough country that's had a very hard history.
How do you avoid fighting his personal war?
You know, any personal interests he might have really don't come into play when we conduct operations with his partner force.
The Australian frontline soldiers who bear the significant brunt of the challenge here for mentoring a sometimes doubtful partner say that the Afghans have come a long way. They also say you can't for a second relax your guard.
If we catch a Taliban unarmed, he'll come back here and go to jail for a few years, but if he's caught, he will, they'll kill him regardless of whether he's armed or not armed. We're governed by rules where these guys have their rules, they're slightly different to ours. Like we had 12 prisoners, 12 detainees the other day, and Usman knew that they were Taliban and he wanted to kill them right then and there, and I said, no, you can't.
You know, I guess at the end of the day, if I prefer not to work with them, then Afghanistan will never, ever be its own country. I'm happy to work with them. I've been left alone with them for them providing me security while I've been doing some bits and pieces, and I trust them wherever I go.
Today's mission for the SAS is a deeper insertion.
The Taliban can ID sort of choke points, roads, where they're going to drive, whereas we can pretty much just drive anywhere. So our freedom of movement is across the desert, wherever. However, the Taliban find it very hard to ID against these, and also we're smaller. We can't be targeted as quickly, we can move a lot faster, and if we need to shoot and run, we can shoot and run.
US CH-47s, the Sugar Bears as they're known, will carry a scouting party of two-wheel and quad bikes into an area where they will conceal and watch and listen.
Often those operations require a bit of ground truthing, so a bit of detailed intelligence that vectors us onto a particular area. In this modern age, you can have all the sensors, all the UAVs, all the intelligence in the world, but nothing, even to this day, nothing replaces the old Mark I eyeball.
The mission is in support of the larger mentoring task force, which operates beyond the main base in smaller outlying patrol bases. The holding of this ground can be seen as the short straw, the MTF more exposed to IED threats and less equipped for aggressive retaliation.
My soldiers don't expect that on a daily basis, but they're exposed to danger constantly, and they don't know when that danger is going to appear and where it's going to appear from or what form it takes. And I think that that's the big difference.
The bomber packed 1,500 pounds of explosives.
The coalition's gains do have a way of becoming shrouded in the dust of the latest IED blast or suicide bomb attack.
You've been here 8 times now, is that right?
Yes, 8.
Yeah. So, is it getting better?
It's a difficult question, Chris. When we first got here when I first got back here in 2002, You could drive around in non-armoured cars, just civilian cars, drive around Terrancao was quite safe. But now you wouldn't step out of the gate unless you're in an up-armoured vehicle like a Humvee or like our Bushmasters, because the ID threat is quite bad. Now, whether we brought that into town because we're here or because we've decided to partner with the SRT boys, I don't know.
How adept is the insurgency at propaganda, at pushing their message, at monitoring the message of the coalition?
Very, very, very smart people know how to use the media to win friends in various media around the world. A small attack where a drug-induced suicide bomber will detonate himself and maybe kill one or two people, say in Kabul, no coalition, no nothing, no damage, is blown out of all proportion in my view.
A simple trip into the neighbouring town of Tarancot tells the story. At no time in its history has this provincial capital expanded as much as it has in the last 4 years. There are paved roads, a busy commercial centre, a hospital, and even a girls' school. But we still require the protection of 4 armoured vehicles to move a couple of kilometres. The governor's compound also tells a story. On July 28, the Taliban launched a suicide attack. The victims, principally the Taliban themselves, and local civilians, including children. That day, this Special Forces nurse was on duty.
And I remember turning around and seeing little bodies literally being carried in and just covered in blood. Just the most horrific injuries. Even to this date, they're still the most horrific injuries I've seen over here.
Out of that attack, the insurgents managed to get none of their targets, some of the high-profile members of the Afghan government within Tarancot, and that would probably be perceived by the population as a desperate attempt that failed dismally and, of course, killed locals. So in actual fact, it was a disaster for the insurgents. It was a failure on all accounts.
At this meeting with the Special Forces commander, the target of the attack, Afghan Governor Mohammad Shirzad, says he still gets complaints about coalition targeting, but they are minor in comparison.
The people that come through are very grateful, and they certainly don't seem to blame the coalition from what I've seen. They don't blame us at all.
Beautiful kick,
As our month with Special Forces draws to a close, it is grand final weekend back at home. It seems fitting. Prominent among the soldiers' reasons given for being here is you don't train all your life to sit in the dressing room on the big day.
Of course I believe in the effort, but I more believe in the blokes next to me. I don't want them to be in a fight without me, pretty much, and I think they'd think the same.
I think it would be a wrongdoing for us to walk away halfway through the operation. I think it would be very un-Australian not to finish a job that you started.
We can't simply go into a conflict and simply leave after we've caused damage, and we're trying to do the right thing and stabilise our country before we leave. I think that's the right thing to do.
There are 1,000 ways to tell the Afghanistan story, and not one of them would be perfectly accurate. But this story, told largely from the soldiers' perspective, is important, not just because they are here and risking their lives, but because they are good witnesses. And what is consistently intriguing is the difference between what they see and the view back home.
We begin tonight with the Australian Defence Force and its chief hitting back at growing calls for the withdrawal of our troops from Afghanistan.
You know, if you're sitting next to someone at an airport
or you're just sort of having a conversation with another friend back at home, I would say that the most question I get asked is, are we really making progress over there?
What do you say?
I say yes, we are making progress. Quite often the only thing that the public may hear is that when there is a unfortunate incident which has occurred, as opposed to the many very good missions that are completed that do have a significant effect on the battle space. So I think it's a great concept that we're opening our doors a little bit, I guess, so to allow the public to properly understand that what's happening over here from both our own perspective and the rest of the Australian forces as well.
I think now that we've got that trust and there's an established government, there's established procedures, I think, it's going to start moving forward.
Australian Special Forces actively avoid recognition. They are practiced at keeping their secrets. A curious consequence is the ugly gains of their enemy can be better known than their own measured, disciplined, and often magnificent endeavours.